Chris had obviously played a lot of games. They've made a big jump in production, especially sacks. What do you attribute to the huge leap in sacks they've had this year?
I think you got to give a lot of credit to them. You know, it's the approach they had coming out of last season, going into this one. They knew they were going to have big roles. They knew we're going to count on them to be playmakers, and they embraced it and got better. You know, they just improved. Zach's maturity and just the consistency that he's playing with. When he needs to play physical, he's doing that. You know, when he needs to be explosive on the edge and get after quarterbacks, he's doing that. So give him a lot of credit for the progress that he's made, and the same with Chris. Just he knows who he is as a player, and kind of knew how we were going to use him, what we're going to ask him to do, and just got better. Put in the time, got his body where it's right for him, best for him to play at, and playing with energy, playing with passion, and winning his one-on-one matchups, just whatever it takes to win. And I think it's hard to take credit for that as a coach. To me, it's putting guys in positions to make plays, and then they got to make it, turn it into something real. And they've done a great job of that all season.
Jim, kind of a off-the-wall question. When you were here, you had a couple games with Purdue in 03 and 04 that were good. Barry had some really competitive games. What do you remember about that 04 game down in Purdue? Both teams were unbeaten. Both teams, I think, were in the top 10. And that one, that was the one where Starks.
Yeah, no, I mean, that game was probably one of the best games I've ever been in. And just from an atmosphere, what was on the line, it had a little bit of everything. There was momentum swings and guys making big plays on both sides of the ball. And, fortunate for us, we made a huge one on defense to win the game. So atmosphere was great, and just going through that adversity and just seeing guys push, it was kind of reminding me a little bit different on the line than last year down at their place, but similar, just back and forth kind of slugfest, and we were able to make play at the end to get it done. So one of those classic college football games, and definitely one I won't forget.
Back to Zach and Chris here. I mean, what kind of example do you think it sets when you got guys that have overcome injuries, being lower on the depth chart earlier in their careers, to then when they get their chance this year, doing what they have with it?
I think it's huge for a program when you have guys that you just see kind of go through it all. I've said it about Chris before. Zach put them in the same boat. They've had the full college football experience. Play early, have an injury, depth in front, great players in front of them. So now you're waiting your turn, and just fighting through all of that, continuing to get better, not feeling sorry for yourself, accepting the roles that you're in, and then just, by the time you get to your junior, senior years and it's time to roll, being productive and making plays and turning into a great leader. They really have been through all of it. They've seen it all, right? Whether it's being out in the training room and finding ways to motivate yourself, or using the guys around you as support, or being the guy and making the plays and leading from that position. So it's huge for a program, because that's the norm. Right? That is the norm. It's not come in and play as a freshman, as a true freshman. It's not come and be a starter as a redshirt freshman and be an All-American or All Big Ten type of player. That's not the norm. We all love that guy. We want as many as possible, but the norm is that you're going to have adversity and you have to push through it, and you just mentally have to just continue to drive and get better. And anytime you have examples like that in your program, it's huge, because that's the majority of guys. They're at different stages of that process, and when you have guys that are juniors and seniors that have went through that, and you're seeing the production on the field, I think the locker room just loves it, and they feed off of that.
Jim, both during the game Saturday at Nebraska and in film review, what were some of the things you saw that, I know Nebraska had a good scheme, but that allowed them to get some wide gaps and get some guys in space, and also make your guys miss some tackles?
Yeah, I mean, that's the difficult part of playing schemes like this. It's option football, sideline to sideline, option football. You have to be assignment sound, and they can create some space at times and get one-on-ones. You got to make them, and easier said than done. It's a huge emphasis, same emphasis it was early in the season when we were making them. We got to get back to playing sound and rallying to the football and getting extra hats there. But first guys there's certain cases where you're the guy. You have to make the play, and you go to the film study. There's enough on tape at this point of the year where you're starting to see things show up that maybe teams, it hasn't been a big emphasis of them. Well, you get the scheme of the week a little bit. So you have to know yourself. You have to know what's hurt you. And we've done a good job of preparing, and we just got to take it to the next step. And we're finding ways to help our guys out, put ourselves as a scheme in better position. And then there's certain times where players got to make it right, and you got to make the play. You're the guy on that play, and trying to get them to understand there's the looks when that happens and what they can do to do that. So I think the emphasis is there. I think our guys understand that, and we're still on the search to find better ways to create less space against some of these offenses.
They're going to have some plays that are not good in the game, but were there some instances, a couple plays where there was a sideline run where it looked like you guys just, instead of tackling him, tried to shove him out of bounds, or a guy went right by a guy who just kind of stood, like, looked like Wild Goose?
Yeah, there was. That guy. Yeah, there were some plays that looked like bad football.
Okay.
Just no way around it. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's addressed with the guys. That can't be the standard. That can't be allowed. It can't be okay. Some of the effort on how we finish some plays, and then there's the classic guys look tired, not bringing their feet, not running, not finishing plays, and when you get both, it's bad ball, and that's how big plays happen, and that's how you give up a lot of yards and a lot of points. And unfortunately, there are too many snaps of that, and we got to do at this point of the year. We have to go practice. We got to do whatever we can to get guys ready. We got to be fresh, and we got to get guys back physically the best we can, or rotate more and get guys on the field that are fresh and that are going to finish those plays.
You've got the early signing period coming up in a few weeks here now. In what ways has Saeed helped sort of behind the scenes and keeping things together with recruits?
Saeed is huge, especially during this time when the focus is on the guys that are here. The focus is on the season. Having someone like Saeed and his staff to just continue with those relationships. We don't have as much time. You're trying to reach out. You're trying to hit guys. You're always making sure they're good and following up on their games and talking to them. But when you have someone like that it's what they do, and just always trying to create momentum in the recruiting space. You need that in a program, because if you're not giving kids attention, they're getting it somewhere. So you always have to remember that. You always have to go out of your way, and having Saeed just bringing great energy for Wisconsin football all the time is huge.
In a lot of cases, years goes into recruiting players. The culmination is that signing period. Is it hard to quantify just how much work goes on behind the scenes to put all that together in that 2-3 day window where they actually sign?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's year round. It is. There's no break, and it's one of the biggest decisions in these kids' lives, and especially up to this point when young kids going, where am I going to go to school? Who am I going to surround myself? What education am I going to try to get, and what type of football am I going to play? Those are huge decisions for these kids, and we try to provide as much information as we can and really show them what Wisconsin football is all about. But to get them to that point where they're signing on the line, it takes a lot of hours on a lot of people, right? Whether it's the coaches, the staff, the university, who we ask to help us out in this process, and the kids and their families. And we don't take it for granted. Every kid you get to that point is huge, because you've sold them on what this place can do for them, and then it's time to execute it and go through that next step of the process with them.
I know Purdue's personnel is a little different, but a lot of your secondary in the offseason talked about how this was the game that frustrated them the most last year. What do you kind of remember just about, maybe their frustrations defending that, and, how much better do you feel about them being equipped to handle it this time around?
Yeah, I would say it definitely was one of the lower points of the year for the secondary. They got after us as a receiver group. They got after us in the run game, put up a lot of points, and we didn't make many plays. We didn't finish many plays very well. So it was something that our guys focused on, and I think took as a learning point. We're not there yet. We have to get better. We have to continue to push. I have a lot of respect for what they do on offense. Very good scheme, very good players in it, and they're doing a great job. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback, right? They're executing, they're moving the ball, they're scoring points. So I got a lot of respect for what they do and how they do it, and we're going to approach the game that way. And our guys, I think it motivated them early in the offseason, and then there's plenty of other stuff to move on. But this was kind of a point where our guys looked at and said, this can't be what this room is all about, and really motivated them to come together and take the next step.
The quarterback run game isn't a big part of Purdue's offense, though, is it?
Not-
Different from Nebraska that way.
Yeah, different from Nebraska that way.
Okay.
They're more pocket passers, a lot of quick game screens. That's how they supplement the run game. Not as much with the quarterback. They will. They have things in their offense that they do it, but it's not nearly to the effect of Nebraska.
Not to say that makes your job easy, but does it make it easier to scheme if you know that that's not really in their arsenal, like with Martinez last
Yeah,
week?
it definitely changes things.
Okay.
You have to be aware of it. You have to be sound when the quarterback does keep the ball, but you feel a little bit better when he's not going to be scrambling around 30 times a game and getting out of the pocket and stuff like that. He has the ability to do it, and he's done it well, but a little bit different deal in the run game, having a guy that is going to get 20 carries or 15 carries at least, as opposed to a guy that's going to keep it a handful of times.
Were you somewhat conservative in the way you attacked the pocket with Martinez because of that, in terms of pass rush?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. Some of the things, how they combine, what they do down the field route-wise and with him moving around in the pocket, yeah, we did some things differently in the pass game, and I think we had some success with it. And then there's other times you got to get him off his spot. You got to go get him, and the emphasis is getting the guy on the ground.
We saw something a little bit different last week with getting the 5 DBs on the field by taking Noah off. What were you guys looking to do with that, and do you think that's something you can improve on down the stretch here?
We were looking to win.
Sure.
Just matchup-wise, just giving them a little bit different front with the coverage that we could run behind it, and definitely helped us at times. I think the majority of the issues in that front were tackling. When we just tackling guys, it wasn't a matchup thing. They do some unique things in the pass game off of their runs, and we felt like we needed to get the 5th DB on the field, and I think it helped us out in a lot of cases.